in the spotlight. Right, so planning group lessons. Let's just recap what we just said because I forgot to hit record. Go for it, please.
Pick a teaching point to focus on in that group.
Excellent, yeah. So try and pull everything in your plan together to a central idea for what you are trying to improve with the students. Mimi?
Be clear about what you think they are capable, really can do easily, and what they can't, and so don't have too much new stuff. Basically.
Exactly. Well done. Because if you're going to refine their skills, you don't want to be overloading them with new skills. You want to be working in their comfort zone. And how, Joe, can we accommodate different levels of student while not dropping that central idea?
Be very clear how you're breaking down tasks and what is capable of people who aren't quite at the more advanced level. So you can still get most of them doing something most of the time, but be clear in your notes when you're going to let a certain group of people rest and pace how you're going to bring them back in.
Yeah, is resting the only option?
No, you could start off whatever exercise with busy, stop, and they can probably manage most of what you're doing as at the nuclear stage, and then you get them to sit down when it gets a bit more tricky.
Yeah, can you think of another option for just sitting down when it gets more tricky? Anyone on level 2?
Clapping in time.
Yeah, exactly. Give them something else that's not just sitting down and listening. So you need in your plans, you need to have, this is where we're aiming for, this is like the baseline that everybody can do, and what are you going to do in between those two things? Are you going to have children who do just sit down, which is an option some of the time but not ideal for the whole time, or are you going to have an exercise that builds from open strings up, for example? So if they can't play that bit with their fingers yet, they just stay on the open strings and practice their bow stroke or the string crossing or whatever it is. Or are you doing a shifting exercise, level 2, where the kids who can't do shifting yet will just do the same thing in the first position and think about beautiful tone and intonation. You know, if you're practicing easy pieces in different positions, they can play those pieces in the original position and then they get to keep playing. Or can you give them something non-musical to do, like clapping, walking the beat, being inspectors, looking for good bow holds, all of those kinds of things.
Or the human clap when you're supposed to be doing a particular action.
Exactly. But just try and think of like that multi-layer approach of, if you're at the top you can do exactly what I'm doing, but if you're somewhere else, how am I going to incorporate something that still builds towards that skill without just kind of dropping them off at each level as it gets harder? Try and think of it as something that you build up from the beginning and they can go as far as they can go, and they can keep doing that thing, if possible. Good, okay, so we're going to go into a level 1 and a level 2 group to plan a group. Level 1s, I would like you to pick it's going to be the same for everyone. Pick one point that you want to work on. Think about if you're planning the structure for a group lesson, how do we want to think about a 40-minute group lesson in terms of time management?
Yes.
Correct. Oh, is the door still on the latch? Edward, do you mind having a look and see it properly, please?
So you want a kind of warm up?
Yeah, exactly. Beginning, middle and end, right? Obviously, yes,
Yeah,
we've always got that.
Yeah.
Warm up, excellent. What do we want from the warm up?
Something to get people focused.
Good.
And sorry.
And what muscles, flexibility.
Good. Okay, what else? Thank you. What else do we want from the warm up?
What have we got to?
Warm ups.
Warm-ups.
So structure.
That's right.
What are the big 2 in music that we talk about, wanting to think about all the time? The most important things after posture. Well, besides posture, 'cause posture is separately different, separately important.
I'm not sure.
Give me one thing that is really important in any playing of any piece in book 1.
The bow. I don't know.
You mean the direction of the bow, or do you mean something else about the bow?
Like, what do you mean by the direction? I mean,
Like, if they're doing an up bow or a down bow, is that the most important thing? Or is it
the right bowing type thing?
Because you want it to... What's affected? If they're doing the wrong kind of bow stroke, what will come out wrong? Can you just analyse why is the bow stroke so important? Think very basic. What will happen if I try and play Twinkle Theme with tiny bows?
Well, that's not going to sound good.
Exactly. So the most important thing is the sound, the tone, yeah? So the big two are tone and intonation. So you want in your warm-up, you want everybody to be doing something that they can do easily. It will probably be the first time they've played that day. And you do not want them to be doing something that is difficult or a struggle. You want them to be like, oh yeah, Twinkle Theme, or, you know, open strings, or a physical warm-up if you're talking about pre-twinklers. Something that they can do really easily, a listening game, a clapping game, something that is going to bring them to you and make them want to play the rest of the group. Yeah? Good. And thinking about playing together, thinking about making good sound, thinking about getting it in tune, thinking about watching the leader. I think in pre-twinkle groups it's really nice to take that as an opportunity, the early part of the group, to do something about making sure the kids know each other. It's really easy to feel like the kids come, so of course they know each other, but a lot of the time they walk in the room, they do their group and then they walk out of the room. That doesn't actually build community, that's just sort of side-by-side learning, isn't it? So think about how you can incorporate name games, how you can incorporate, you know, you can do lots of work on phrasing. If you play a piece and you say, right, I want you to walk around the room, and every time we get to the end of a phrase, have a 2-minute conversation with the person nearest to you. And for very little ones, they won't know what to do. You'll have to say to them, say your name and tell that person something that you like. And then the next round, say, you know, where you live and something that you don't like, or whatever. Like, give them things to tell each other, because otherwise they'll just be like, and the ones who know each other will chat. So do try and, you know, build your community in group lessons.
You said in pre-twinkle, I would see it quite value to that kind of building community right through levels. Maybe not in such a facile way of, hi, my name is John, and I'm from, but still having that connection, that moment to walk into them and say, we are working as a group, which means you are, is, because otherwise you're having a lesson by voyeurism as well as participation, not participating together. So it seems to me, and I don't know if that is a normal thing in Suzuki or not.
I think you're right. I think you're right. You do need to do it all the way through. I guess my point about pre-twinkles is they literally don't know each other.
Yeah.
Like, there's a new kid every week maybe, and they don't know who, you know, they don't know each other's names, and the parents don't know each other either. So during those moments when the kids are talking, you can say to the parents, you know, also turn around and talk to someone you've never spoken to before, find out who their child is. You know.
Is it good to say, just give them, you could give them a different question every week, so you could say, can you tell me what your favourite colour is, or what your favourite food is, or something
Exactly,
like that.
yeah,
So they
all
just
those
build up a
things.
gradual picture.
Yeah.
You know.
I think the other thing about the older kids is that I tend to anyway give them more activities where they're in pairs or groups, so they will be working together to do something like, you know, right, we're going to practice. I guess you could do it with pre-twinkles, like making a brilliant bow hold, but when they're really small, they just don't really know how to work like that. Whereas by the time they're sort of 6, 7, you can be like, okay, everybody's going to get in pairs and practice making the most beautiful violin position, and then one person watches and the other person does it, and then you can swap. Whereas with the little ones, that's not really going to work. So then it needs to be more sort of structured socialising rather than just socialising as a byproduct of the work you're doing in the group lesson. Does that make sense?
Yes, quite nice.
Yeah, like all as in all things, almost all things.
Almost all things.
Right, good. So, warm up, socialising. The main part of your group is obviously going to be the main work on the teaching point that you have chosen. That doesn't necessarily mean one piece, right? That doesn't mean I'm going to get Go Turn Up Roadie really good. That could mean we are going to work on dynamics. We're going to go from Go Turn Up Roadie, Echo, through O Come Little Children, crescendos and diminuendos, through to Minuet 1, or Minuet 2, or Gossip Gavotte, you know, however, whatever the spread of your group is. And so, Bex, could you think of something for those kids who aren't playing the more advanced pieces? How can they keep working on their dynamics during that?
Whilst the other
Yeah.
playing the pieces. I guess you could get them doing sort of hand gestures along to their dynamics, so sort of
Yeah,
like big
absolutely.
hand gestures for forte, and then they have to
Very good.
make small gestures for
Yeah.
piano.
Very good. Can anyone else think of something else you could do that would help them build their dynamics?
Clapping.
How would it help with the dynamics?
Well, like stuff with clapping and big ones.
Good, yeah, exactly.
Could you do it with, I mean, if, for instance, if they're using, if they're playing, using more bow for forte and less bow for piano,
Yeah.
you could do something.
Which most of the time, I mean, right through to like book
Yeah.
4, you can
But-
see when they're playing loud as well as when they're playing quiet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you
So-
could do something with. I'm not quite sure what you could do with it, but obviously with Aunt Rhodie, that's an easy one, isn't it? Because it's exactly the same two
Yeah.
bars, but then one is played when you can.
Good. So,
they can-
Ed or Joe, can you work out what that activity would be? How can you use the length of bow to involve non-playing children in while the others are playing?
Non-playing.
Yeah, the kids who can't play those notes yet with their fingers.
So they'll be doing bigger gestures or smaller gestures.
Yeah, so bowing in the air.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah, good. And then what is going to be? What else are you going to make sure is in your group lesson? Kids like, don't put me on the spot. Don't put me on the spot.
A recap.
I've put everyone on the spot once now.
The recap at the end.
Good, yeah, and you're sort of, if you think about it a little bit like an essay, you want a conclusion, like what have we learnt today, what are you going to practice, how are you going to keep this work going through your practice? Good. If you're talking about a work, like a workshop kind of group, then that's probably, you know, you have your warm-up, you have your work, and then you have your conclusion, and often we'll finish with game. If you're talking about a weekly group, for example here or somewhere else where you run groups, what else would you want in there?
I'd put a little spot for a solo.
Exactly right, yeah. So solos, and the thing that I'm constantly saying to teachers that I really want you all to hear is talk to the parents. Explain to the parents how whatever you're working on works. If they're on their phones, just say, parents, can I have your attention for a second? The reason that we're doing the bowing in the air for the dynamics is because if you want to play louder, you need bigger bows. Like, it sounds so blatantly obvious to us that you will worry about patronising the parents, but lots of them will not realise that. And, you know, and then you can also say to the children, shall we give the parents a quiz? That's very good, they always love that. And then you say, okay, what have we learned today about how you control your dynamics? And, you know, that's a really good way to recap because it brings the parents back into the room with you. You know, personally, I feel like, I don't know how many of you have ever sat through multiple group lessons, and also you won't be able to really understand what it's like as a parent because you're teachers. It can be incredibly boring. I don't really hold with their, like, it's so rude they're on their phones, I think, sort of, well, personally, I understand why they would be on their phones, but I do think what you need to practice is getting their attention back when you want them. And so have that relationship where you're not afraid to say, okay, sorry, can you just look up from your phones or your book or whatever, just give me 2 minutes of your time, explain what you're doing, and then allow them back into whatever.
On your
How
phone
well
is
you
at least in
advise.
the room.
They're on, yeah.
And there are some
Exactly.
parents who just won't even sit in the room.
Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. So, level ones, please could you go away together and plan a 40-minute group lesson with basic, like, this is how long the warm-up's going to be, this is what we're going to work on, these are the pieces we're going to play, and this is the game we're going to do at the end. Think about one thing that you're going to use multiple pieces to improve. It's not about, let's make a really good perpetual motion. Yeah?
Yeah.
Good. And you have 20 minutes to do that. I guess you don't really need to go away, you can do it in here.
We're away.
Okay, poor thing. Oh dear!
What do we have to do?
I'm just waiting for Joe to come back, otherwise I'll just have to say it again. So, level ones, if you want to go in a different room, feel free, or if you want to stay in here and just get together to do it together.
Where should we go?
Okay. I'm going to turn the recording off when I've talked about what level 2 is going to do.
Should we just go up?
Yeah, sure.
Shouting is not. Presume you're just getting a glass of water or something.
I'm just going to stick this in the kitchen.
So, Mimi, what did you do your group lesson plan on? Remind me, please.
Yeah, that's a good question. Can't remember.
I can look.
I know I used
Don't worry, I'll look it up.
Yeah.
So, I'm just going to look at what you've all done already and give you something that doesn't reproduce that. You're alright, sweetie.
I think I did it on staccato bowing.
Okay, good. Right, so Ed, yours was dynamics.
Mine was third position.
Third position.
Not shifting, just third position.
Yeah, staccato. So let's do up staccato in preparation for, I'm imagining that you have some kids who can play Becca Gavotte and that all of your kids can play Minuet and G, and therefore obviously the other pieces before that. Okay? 20 minutes. Come and ask me if you need help on anything.
Is it a 40-minute?
40-minute group lesson. You do not need to worry about solos.